Her book, You Are Worth It, 52 Weeks to Honoring, Loving, and Nurturing Your Soul, was released late last fall and is now in its second printing. Please help me welcome Ms. Louise Griffith.
Thank you. I love your energy. Oh my goodness. And I've been presenting for many years. I've never had the opportunity to do the polka in the morning. But why weren't you dancing? Leave it to New Prague. I love it. And I want to say thank you for saying yes to education for this 2015-16 year. Many of you are very excited because you're looking forward to being with your students, knowing that you have the opportunity of making a profound impact in their lives. You've done it before and you'll continue to do it. And I love seeing the video of new teachers. Yeah, this is a really great place. I could work here. It's fun. You know, really, if we're not having fun, we're in trouble, don't you think? We're not laughing, but. And also, I'm just curious, how many of you, is this your very first year ever? Yes. And you might be feeling both excited and nervous. I think that we all did for our first year. Would you agree? And some of you, although I don't think I've met any of you yet, could be feeling burned out and wishing that you were retired this year. Because you know what? Your job is hard, have you noticed? And if someone has not been in your situation in the classroom, they can't really understand what it's like. Would you agree? I mean, they just really can't. So sometimes they might say flippant things that hurt your feelings, but I wouldn't take it personally. So and also how many of you have a life outside of school? Good. I have no idea what's going on in your personal life, but you may be working through some hard things right now. And I want to acknowledge that. That would be true of life. Anyway, I imagine if you even added more sunshine to the beautiful light you already bring, regardless of which category you're in. And what if that's possible because it impacts you and the people with whom you interact? And I'm excited to show you a video clip. I'm also so very grateful because Mitch up there has it ready to go. It's not depending upon me. Anyway, it's called Bring Me Sunshine by the Jive Aces. So enjoy.
Unemployment levels have soared to record numbers over the past few months as the business sector feels the credit squeeze. Experts blame the government for incompetence, while the government in turn continues to blame the banks. The banks are blaming the public sector for the economic downturn, and there is no clear end of the crisis in sight.
Strikes continue on the underground today due to industrial...
And in further news, another politician has been remanded into custody over allegations of fraud and embezzlement.
Floods have killed enough...
Citizens are being advised to stay indoors today as an alligator has reportedly escaped from the zoo. And finally, the weather, cloudy and dim day, which looks to last at least the rest of the week. Temperature will be chilly at best, and there is a high chance of rain with an unrelenting easterly wind. The leader of a girl gang in Plymouth has been
Bring me sunshine in your smile. Make me happy all the while. In this world where we live, there should be
And everything was so dark, wasn't it? And so gloomy. And just that his sunshine and being who he was, his light, look at what a difference it made, just as you can do. I want you to consider this, please. If you don't honor your own soul, who will? And if you don't honor your own soul, who will? And what I mean by that is we all have an innate inner wisdom that really, when we pause and check in with it, can serve us well. And imagine living your life personally and professionally from a place where you knew you were worth it, whatever it may be. And so I ask you to hold on to that because you are a wise person. Some years ago, I was exercising at Curves. And I remember I was on this machine, whatever, and Missy was her name, was on this machine. So we must have been working on her waist, but she told me that she had lost 65 pounds so far that year. And I asked her how that came to be at this time in her life. Her reply, I woke up one morning and just decided I was worth it. And really, that phrase stayed with me for days. It haunted me in a good way. Because I realized that for me, you don't have to think this way, but she had just given me a nugget that was like a complete blessing, because this is what I decided. If I don't think I'm worth it, and you don't think you're worth it, whatever our it's may be, it just may never happen. What do you think about that? I woke up one morning and I decided I was worth it. And so I don't know what your it might be at this time in your life. They would be different. And I invite you to check inside of you and ask the question, what is your soul telling you? Because it knows wise things. Some years later, because that is the title of my book, You Are Worth It, and it's really because of meeting her some years ago that came to be. But I began wondering, and I invite you to do the same. I began wondering what my first it was. And I've spoken to ninth grade girls, and they can go back and even think about one of their first its. So I'm going to tell you my story, and I want you to think about your own story. Because you have inside of you what you needed then. And I define it as like something you put your stake in the ground over, like you just knew that it was important. I went to the Academy of Holy Angels, Catholic all-school girls school. We wore an ugly flannel gray uniform, no, I mean ugly, and ugly boat shoes, nondescript white blouse. If you're a freshman, you had a green tie. I really didn't care about fashion much. I was so happy to be there. I loved my school. My sisters had gone there, friends from the Catholic grade school had gone there. I just loved it. And during that year, my parents were going through a divorce, which maybe a lot of you experienced, some of you. And I remember there was a lot of discussion about finances, but I thought, that's none of my business. Until my mother told me I could not go back to Holy Angels sophomore year because there wasn't any money. Well, I was mad enough about the divorce. And of course, being an adolescent, I was totally appropriate. Developmentally, I thought it was all about me and they were trying to wreck my life, right? But when she told me that, I had my stake in the ground. And I said, and I thought to myself, oh no, you're not going to take this away from me. So I went to my soul place, which was and is Lake Harriet. Do you have a soul place? A place where you can go and just be? And if not, as a former teacher, I can get a little bus. I want you to put that down as your first homework assignment. Whatever would be a place that is right for you. And as I'm walking around the lake, I'm just furious. If you're in my head, you would have heard, all right, you guys, you may be wrecking your marriage, everything, but you're not going to wreck my life. Must have been one of my favorite words. And I thought, I was mad at God, I was mad at them, you name it, I was mad at everybody. And I also said, and God, where are you in all of this? This is really important to me. I have my life ahead of me. You might think this sounds whatever, but I heard, you'll go back to Holy Angels. Really? Do you have a plan? Yes. Get a job and pay for it. Yes. I am in. No, I didn't have many details, but I went home to my mother and I said, guess what? I'm going back to Holy Angels. I'm going to get a job and pay for it. And she just looked at me because she believed me. So the next day I put on my best outfit and I walked to the corner of 50th and France. Do you know that area? It was a Fannie Farmer candy store. I walked in and a middle-aged woman looked up. May I help you? I said, yes, I've come to apply for a job. And she said, you have to be 16 to work here. How old are you? Well, I'll be 15 at the end of the month. I'm sorry, you won't be able to apply. And I could tell there's no negotiating, So I'm like, this wasn't part of my plan, and I knew I couldn't be walking all around the city. So I went to 44th in France. And I decided that I would speak straight from my heart. I would tell my story, and that would be the best that I could do. As I walked into the store, Mr. Nelson, the owner and pharmacist, looked up. May I help you? Yes, I hope so. I told him about my parents' divorce. I couldn't go back to Holy Angels, a school I loved, and I wanted to work there to pay my tuition. I said, I'll do anything, even clean your store. I did say that, hoping it wouldn't be. And I noticed something soften in his eyes. Not that they were hard eyes, but something was going on. And he said, I'm going to give you an application. Please fill it out, and we'll get back to you. 2 days later, the call that changed my life came in, and I was hired. I could only work for a certain number of hours, and only till 7 until I turned 16. So I got to work in the back office with a woman named Marlis, who was very grouchy. Can you picture her? I mean, like very grouchy. And so I sort of thought, holy mackerel. And I wonder what it was like for her to have, she just could be grouchy all day long and no one would interrupt her, right? So to have some little 15-year-old bounce in who's so happy about life. But I decided, you know what? I'm not going to change my energy to meet hers. I'll just keep being who I am. And I knew I couldn't change her, of course, but I wanted to maybe impact our relationship. And guess what? She became a little happier. I maybe became a little organized because of her. And I worked there for 7 years, paying my way through high school and college. And I'm wondering, do any of you work with grouchy people? And I think that we have 2 choices, by the way. We can talk about them in a lounge, which of course you wouldn't do. Or, pardon me, when was the last time you decided, you know what, I'm going to spend some time getting to know that person. I'm going to notice what they do well. I'm going to stop by and encourage them. We have a choice. And it can make a huge difference, for sure. Okay? And I think Mr. Nelson created that job for me. I don't really think he needed someone to file the charge slips. It was great, though, when I got out on the floor. When I was 16, I knew everyone by name. They go, so-and-so, I said, 4210 Arden Drive. They're like, who in your life has believed in you? Does that person know what an impact that had upon you? If they're still alive or someone in their families, please let them know, because it makes such a difference. And I know that you have impacted young people's lives for many, many years. And you don't always get to hear that. You're planting the seeds. As a psychologist for the past 28 years, I have had the privilege of working with many individuals. And as I hear, and a lot of them teenagers, and actually many from your community, I listen to their story and I'm like amazed. And I might say, how is it that you are so high functioning and resilient? And what do you think they often say? It was because of a teacher in my 5th grade, junior high, bus driver, custodian, librarian, paraprofessional, well, they didn't say paraprofessional, but assistant. And it's beautiful, and I say, well, do they know that? No, they don't, maybe. And I don't know if you're familiar with Ann Maston's study on resilience at the University of Minnesota. But here's one thing that she determined over the years, the 70s. It takes one caring adult who believes in a young person and sees hope for them. That's one of the factors that makes the difference. Did you know that? It takes one. Ideally, you have more, but it takes one. Okay? So talk to someone next to you for a minute and tell them about someone who believed in you. I have my chime, by the way. So just so you know, when you hear the chime, it's time to come back. Who believed in you? Of course, I think you were talking about that, so I'm really happy, right? But sincerely. And how many of you have had students come back to you later on in life and let you know what an impact you had in their life? Yes. Sometimes I get to hear it, but we're going to spend the time that we have together in 3 areas over which you have control, and they're on your handout. Honor your wisdom, choose your story, and celebrate your success. It's been said that wisdom is to the soul what health is to the body. And it really does inform our perspectives. Would you agree with that? I just had a birthday yesterday, so I'm hoping that's true of the older. And I also think that sometimes, you have to be quiet and go inside and check it out. Looking back over the years, I think I just stayed frantic crazy. How about you? Make sure you take some time for yourself this year. Children are wise beings, I think. What do you think? They really are. And they don't know that they're wise because they're just doing life. I mean, and I've watched over the years as a grandmother, they sort of lose that sometimes as they get older, and well-meaning adults can sort of help them along with that, as well as other young people. And teenagers don't like to even talk about things like that, right? They're very wise. I've learned so much from young people. While babysitting my grandson Lucas, I spent the night because I was going to babysit in the morning. It was 5:45 a.m. And I was trying to do this thing. Okay, Lukey, you don't have to go back to sleep. How about if we just rest for a little bit? Right? You've done that? So I'm so busy just trying to get a little rest for myself. And out of nowhere, but of course out of somewhere, he said, Nana, old people die. And I said, yes, sweetheart, they do. Nana, are you old? Now, and I said, no, sweetheart, I am young at heart and I love life. No, I didn't tell him that really, it was just the Saturday before. My friends and I had gone out for breakfast, talking about Social Security, Medicare, because some of them had January, February birthdays, so they were trying to educate us. But anyway, Nana, are you old? No, honey, I don't feel that way. I love life, I love people, I love to dance. I love to dance to polka and New Prague. No. And I paused. Lucas, Nana, you look sort of old. So it didn't matter that I just had my roots colored the day before, and I thought I looked pretty young. That was not an issue. And so I didn't need to say this next thing. However, you know how sometimes things come out of your mouth? I said, Lucas, do you think Grandma Kay looks old? She's a year younger than I am. So what do you think his response was? No. But you know what? I never asked him about that. I didn't ask him how it was he was thinking about that. I don't think any of grandparents had died in preschool, but you know what? I'm glad that he felt safe enough to be processing. He was processing life, death, immortality, whatever. And I've never asked him about it. And looking back, this is just me. I think as an adult, in different capacities, I often ask children too many questions. Because sometimes they get to be just with their process. What do you think about that? There's a fine line between all of it. And so later on in life, after that time, I began wondering what I was thinking about age 4. And I ask you to think about that. Because I know that I think that young people know wise things. They just don't know that they know them because they're just doing life. Does that make sense? So I know that my baby brother Bill was born in October. And eventually, his crib was at the end of my bed. And I didn't really play with dolls and stuff, but this was like a real person. And you know how eager children are in the morning? They're just like ready for the new day and very excited about all of that. And when they pull themselves up in the crib, they're just ready to go. So I just love that little boy. I love that little boy, and I had a sense that at some level he was very vulnerable. And I also had a sense at age 4 that I should protect him. Can you think back to when you were younger, some things that you actually knew? You just haven't been spending your time thinking about it. But can you? And so then, when at age 26, my brother ended his own life, suicide, untreated depression, I went back to that vow I made when I was a little child. And I want to step into my role now as a psychologist. I don't know anything about your lives. Some of you may be experiencing depression. You have experienced depression. You're being treated for depression. You live with people who are experiencing depression. I mean, in a small group, that would be true. Here's what I want you to know, though. You and that person are not damaged goods. I'd like you to become educated about depression. Become educated. And not judgmental of someone else. And I also want to acknowledge that you've had deaths here recently in your school district. And I know that you have over the years. So please know that I care deeply. And it's a very sad thing, isn't it? So all the more that we can become educated and educate our kids. During that time, afterwards, I experienced what John of the Cross calls a dark night of the soul. Have you heard that term in the 1500s? And bless you, and each one of you has experienced something that's been hard and challenging. You know what I'm saying? And it's not about comparing our its or our dark nights. But what I want to say about that is wherever you are now in your life, if you're in that situation, please stick with it. Stay with it, because it's the only way that you get through it. And one dark hour has the same amount of minutes as a light hour, but it seems like days. And for those of you who have experienced something that you really were deep in process about, do you realize that as you look back, you came through with gifts and wisdom you never would have had before? What do you think about that? And how did it also prepare you to be a good teacher? We do that. So to stick with it and honor your wisdom that. And sometimes, by the way, fear can get in the way of accessing your wisdom. How many of you have ever experienced fear? There's a poem that's meant a lot to me over the years called Edges. When we walk to the edge of all the light we have and take the step into the darkness of the unknown, we must believe one of two things will happen. There will be solid ground to stand on, or we'll be taught how to fly. There'll be solid ground to stand on, or we'll be taught how to fly. That poem, by the way, is on my website. If you want it, my website's on there. Just click on poetry, and there's some other good ones I like. But, I mean, I like that poem. Some days I'd like a few more details. How about you? But solid ground to stand on, or we'll be taught how to fly. I say that's doable. What do you think? I still like some details. A few more of them. So fear. But sometimes we just take a leap of faith. Have you noticed? It's like I've got to move forward. And so that's what you do. All right. I'd like to switch into choosing your story. And by the way, on your handout, and I know some of you may just throw this right in the trash, even though it's really my best handout. But there is a place, because I'm the type who likes to do stuff afterwards. Think about it. Anyway, what is your soul telling you now is something that's on there. And sometimes when we check inside, we know some things, we know that we know, but the timing is not right. But if you're not going to honor that, who will? Okay? Choosing your story is part number 2. And on your handout, you can see some messages. Like a lot of people learn to surrender their intuition because of messages that they heard. Can you read those? Can we read them out loud together, negative ones? Okay, can we go? Let's do it. Don't be a know-it-all. Keep peace at any cost. Be happy with what you have. Be quiet. Be good. Do what I tell you. Don't be too bright. Are there any others? You know, adults, I think, said these things to us because they actually were well-meaning and trying to help us. Though some maybe were mean in your life. Back to Holy Angels, I ended up running for sophomore class presidents because my friends said that would be a great idea. I'm like, I'm up for it. And I remember being in the back of the chapel, and my prayer was, you know, if I have this honor, I will be the best leader that I can for my class. And if I don't, it's okay, because I'm so happy to be here to have this opportunity. And my friends didn't know that I really almost didn't come back. So when I got home and I told my mom the good news, well, I was excited. She said, now, dear, don't get a big head. And I wasn't even thinking about it. I was so grateful. I want to call my sister and her husband, Collect. Hi, got a call from Louise Rogers, because they had contributed some money to my tuition. And I didn't have the words for it then, but I experienced that as shaming. Don't get a big head. And as a result of it, I ended up playing small as I went through the years. And I had the opportunity to talk with my mom about that while she was still alive. And she said, oh, sweetheart, I just wanted to teach you the difference between being confident and conceited. And I know that I have gotten feedback from my daughter, who let me know some things that I've said or done that wasn't really too life-giving. And I don't wake up in the morning saying, I think I'm going to wreck a kid today. You know. But if we don't get the feedback, we won't really know. Excuse me. So what I say to you, excuse me, I want you to think in your own life about maybe a message that someone gave you that you're holding on to, and it's still a part of your story. And I say if your story doesn't make you feel worth it, change it. Change your perspective. I mean, you can't really lie. Apparently, Steve Jobs was adopted. I didn't really know that till recently, and a cousin told him that he had been given up. Then he was really in a funk. And his parents said, what is going on? And he told them. And they said, you weren't given up. You are chosen by us. You are chosen by us. So if your story is not making you feel worth it and it's like holding you back, I would give that message back to whoever said it. How about the positive ones? Imagine hearing messages like these. Please say these with me. Be proud of who you are and what you know. You make a difference. You are wise. Trust you know what to do next. You count. Think big. Speak your truth. And you know what? You can be saying these to yourself every day. Of course you can say it to children. And even as I think about children wisdom, how often do you with your students, well, but with children, but I'm thinking about your students, how often do you say, wow, you are really a very wise person. Thank you for that perspective. I never thought of it. Just to, continue to affirm that. And how many of you have seen the movie or read the book, The Help? Yes? And do you remember when May Mobley is leaving, Abilene is leaving, she says to May Mobley, baby girl, do you remember what I taught you? Do you remember what I taught you? And May Mobley said, he was kind, he was wise, and you is important. And I say the same thing to you. It doesn't hurt to be telling ourselves positive messages. How many of you are good at that? I'm going to give you an opportunity to practice that before we leave. In my own life, I have two stories. Story A is that I was married for 43 years, and it was a relationship that really wasn't, as I got a little bit older, wasn't really all that life-giving, maybe subtle, verbal, emotional abuse, but I'm like, oh no, life's going to be great. And so it maybe escalated, or maybe did I wake up out of my self-imposed trance. And so I moved out of a beautiful home 3 years ago where my soul was actually dying. This is not to blame anyone. It's my soul. If I say, if you don't honor your own soul, who will? And I live in a 2-bedroom apartment. But you know what? It's peaceful there. I do have 6 storage units on my floor that I gotta, 4 2x3, 3 2x5. I have too many books, but just do what you can. All right, that's story A. I also have story B. I was married for 43 years, and I have a lot of good positive memories. A lot of good positive memories. Loved, we have 2 children, son and a daughter. Loved being involved with them, their lives, their activities, the other families. And you know how that goes when you're parents. And also what I know to be true, I could not have written that book had I not spent those 43 years in that situation. And also, he has been the best teacher in my life. But I have new lessons to learn. Does that make sense? And my soul is at peace. So what I want to say is I don't think in your life you have stories. And in some situations you want to be, some people like to be the victim. They like to blame others. I don't know anything about you. But on the other end, there's another perspective. You know what? This is what I experienced, and this is what I learned from it. So you have to decide. Your energy will be better spent with the second one. But I don't think we hop from story A to B. In my own life, I found a great therapist before I made that choice because I knew that I would change history forever and that I would be the bad guy. And I also had 2 coaches that I still connect with. And so whatever you're going through, here's what I want to say to you. Don't do it alone, okay? And find someone that will be nurturing for you and also call you forth. Is that a deal? Perfect. All right, so your homework, if you choose to take it on, is to think about in your own life, what message no longer serves you that was given to you by someone else? Okay? All right, so we're going to move to celebrate your success, the third part. And this is going to be interesting. I've never quite done this way, but I will find out in a minute if it's a disaster or if it has value. So I'm going to ask you, and I know that you appreciate when your students listen for directions. I'm going to ask you, I'll just tell you the whole thing ahead of time until I get my chime, to connect with one other person, just one, Decide who's going to be A, who's going to be B, and then I'm going to give you the directions for whoever's going to, for one of them, okay? So I want you to stand, connect with one person, decide who's going to be A, who's going to be. You have 20 seconds to do this. All right, A's, where are you? Can I see the A's? This is definitely going to be a Hail Mary full of grace. But anyway, A's, you are going to have 1 minute. Well, we're going to break some rules. Are you up for it? Okay, good. We're going to break some rules, and here's the thing. A's, where are you? I know. He's looking disgusted, but really, you're going to have a great time when it's over. He said, give me the root beer float. I want that root beer float. All right, A's, you're going to have a minute to talk about 2 things, if you can fit in 3, great, that are positive about you. I know, gifts and strengths that you bring. And if you can't think of them and you're uncomfortable, what do other people tell you about yourself? You have 1 minute, and I have this timer. And look how excited he is. He can hardly stand it. All right? Come on, you guys. Wait. All right, B's, you have a very important job. You're going to break a rule too. Are you ready for it? You're going to listen. And if A stops talking before, whoops, my phone, you hear this ding, you must have them flap their wings and say, I am great, I'm great, I'm great. All right? So I'll let you know when the timer goes off. When you hear the ding, I'll give you directions on your mark, set, go. All right. When I looked at my thing, I just got to be honest, it said 3 hours and 59 seconds. So I switched it. All right, where are the B's? This is very important. I want you to look at your partner in his or her eyes and say, you are an awesome, magnificent human being, and give him a standing ovation. Go. All right, B, where are you? B. B's? Guess what? Thank you. You're doing a good job, and we're all teachers. Amazing. You know what I mean? All right. You have 1 minute, and I will not have 3 hours. I'll have 1 minute to talk about what you bring to life personally and professionally that's positive. Your gifts, your strengths. And if you don't feel comfortable, then share with your colleague what other people have told you, okay? And A's, you got the thing. If they quit talking, clap their wings, say, I'm great, I'm great, I'm great. Let's go. All right, A's. Where are the A's? The listeners, you're doing a great job. I want you to look at your partner, B, and say, I thought it was great till I met you. You're an amazing, magnificent human being. You're over the top. Okay, tell them. All right, thank you. All right, thank you. Some of you may have found that uncomfortable. Did you? Yes. I want you to think about something, please, and it's on your handout. One of the most selfish things that you and I can do, really, is to not honor those gifts within us. They are God-given gifts. Like, I'm having a really great time being with you. This is a gift that I was given that I've developed over the years, okay? It's just, I'm really having a good time, and I know the source, and then I keep working on it. I went on a date with my granddaughter to Duluth last week because I like to celebrate the first double-digit birthday. And so she said, Nana, I'm going to make your screen orange, so if ever you want color, just do it. And I'm like, great. I'm like, if you know how to get it back to your regular screen, please see me afterward. But anyway, really, if you take nothing else away from our time together, I would like it to be this. That when you wake up in the morning or go to bed in the evening, I'd like to remember what you shared with your colleague. Sure, we could talk about what we do wrong, not measuring up, so on and so forth, but I'd really like for you to, today and as you walk into the school year, own those gifts. Do more of that. We don't have to worry about you getting a big head or anything like that. These are gifts. And as you, some of you know the poem Light by Marianne Williams. And I like when she says, there's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. These are gifts. And so when you use your gifts, you call it forth for me, and I get to experience it. Does that make sense? Yes. So in closing, I think that you have two choices. One is you can choose to play small, listen to those messages that limited you that you still hold on to. Play small, don't own the gifts that you've been given, and just keep moseying through life. So that is one choice, and I'd like you to notice the impact and resonance of that choice. You have another choice, and that is to step into the light of who you really are. The light, the magnificence, the kindness, all those things that you are. You can step into that spot and own those gifts which illuminate yourself and other people. So if you make this choice, I'd like you to notice the impact and the resonance. I hope you make the second choice, because it is really who you are, and you are worth it. And I still, once again, say thank you for saying yes to education for this year. Blessings. Thank you.